Hi, this is Ronnie Platt from Kansas, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast. Carry on.
Got it.
Good morning, Vietnam.
Good morning,
Hello.
Vietnam.
Awesome.
Hello, Ronnie. How are you?
Keep it low, crack hour.
Anyway, I want to thank you for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, my pleasure.
Longtime Kansas fan. It's a pleasure to have you on here.
It's funny,
What's it-
me too.
Going through the press release and talking to Hadley, 50 years. You ever imagine you'd still be doing this 50 years later?
That's a question for Phil and Rich. Do they imagine they've been doing this 50 years plus?
Yeah, but as a band total, I mean, it's
yeah,
kinda crazy, right?
it is crazy. I mean, think about the, what they've gone through over the years, with seeing the music industry change so much, and having such wild success back in the 70s and early 80s to really what Phil and Rich consider the dark days in the early 90s, when really no classic rock was popular.
Right.
The hair bands even were more or less disappeared and gave way to grunge.
Right.
So it's really something to have Phil and Rich just continue to keep this train rolling for 50 years.
I know, that's
50.
crazy.
And it's how many bands really have survived 50 years? How many bands from today are going to survive 50 years?
Right.
I don't think too many.
Did you find it kind of intimidating when you joined the band? Because you joined in 2014,
Of
right?
course.
Yeah.
You could shorten that question.
So, like, when you first walked in the room and you got a jam with this legendary band, and you're like, okay, I know all the songs. You're obviously a competent player.
Piece of cake.
Yeah. What was it? What was describe the emotion when you first walked in? Because you're walking into a legend, basically, of a band.
It's funny because God, I remember walking in to that first rehearsal, the very first one, and I think the anticipation of getting there was even higher than being there, because as soon as I walked in, everybody's like, okay, let's get to work. It was just like walking into another band rehearsal to me. That element of, holy crap, I'm singing with a band that sold 30 million albums now. And that instantly lost my head, just going into that rehearsal. And, of course, Billy, who, I had to have a lot of work with because we were dividing up vocals, and, now he was singing Robbie's parts, where, Billy sang a lot of Steve's parts back before I joined the band. And now he was switching over to Robbie's parts because I'm taking over Steve's parts. And, it was neat just to walk in and immediately feel comfortable, but there is an element, I've sung Wayward Son thousands of times before joining the band. But when you sing Wayward Son in Kansas, it's
A little bit different.
There's just that little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No pressure. But how cool is that, though? Because that song, obviously, there's a bunch of other like really, really amazing Kansas songs, but that one is it's
Iconic.
sort of life changing. It's right up there with like Stairway to Heaven and stuff. It's
and
like
that's
that influential as a song.
Yes.
That's what I've been told many times, is that Wayward Son is like the most requested classic rock song, only number 2 in many markets, I should say, only number 2 to Stairway to Heaven. Really?
Boom.
Wow, that's
Proven correct.
yeah, that's pretty wild. That's huge. That's huge.
I mean, you can't escape that song. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like if you go out and you turn on the radio, it's on 3 or 4 different stations. If you go into the supermarket, it's playing in the supermarket. If you watch TV, it's on TV. It's everywhere. It surrounds you.
Yeah. That's what we've always said about Dust in the Wind. Where have you not heard Dust in the Wind?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everywhere
Absolutely.
from the dentist office to the grocery store to the gas station, everywhere. And Wayward Son's a very close second to that.
But you can hear Dust in the Wind in Guitar Center from kids of every age, even adults. They go in there like, oh, I'm going to play this acoustic. Okay, let's play this,
Right. So instead of No Stairway to Heaven, it says No Wayward Sons on the sign.
I like that.
It's good. But we're talking about Dust in the Wind. Pay attention, Bruce.
Whatever.
I'm just joking.
You know what? I'm going to bring up a touchy subject here because you bring up Dust in the Wind. And when I was growing up and I took guitar lessons for a short time and bass guitar lessons for a short time, it was on every teacher's curriculum, Dust in the Wind, to learn that picking pattern and to learn how to rotate, your fingers in the left hand, playing that. Every teacher had that on their curriculum. They were all teaching that. It was par for the course back then. And this is the dark area I'm going to go into. And I know they don't like me talking about this, but for a band to have that kind of influence on so many musicians, and Garth Brooks also partially attributes Kansas to getting him involved in the music business.
Wow.
How is Kansas not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Oh God, don't even get me started on that institution.
It's not.
And I'm not saying that and that right there, that is the response I get. I'm like, wait a second, Kansas is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. No,
I'll be honest. When I was prepping for this, I went to look because I thought for sure, you guys were in, and yeah, that's a travesty to say the least.
I mean, come on, 30 million album, probably 35 million at this point, maybe as much as 40. But when you talk about the musical influence that Kansas has had over other musicians, that's the amazing part to me. And I don't say that on my behalf. I'm talking about the original 6.
Right.
Really? Kerry Livgren doesn't command that honor. It
is a travesty
to me.
It is a travesty because as I was prepping for the interview, I was listening to Kansas and I was just like, man, like first and foremost, the thing that stood out to me about Kansas was everyone calls them like a progressive rock band. But to me, sure, they're progressive, or you're progressive, I should say. But there's such an amount of Americana inside of that progressive rock. And there's no other band that I can think of that's even done that.
Wow, that's a good point.
And the other aspect, it is tough to call Kansas a progressive rock band exclusively, because when you listen to the whole library of music, the diversity of songwriting is really extreme. I mean, right there, just as an example, Dust in the Wind and Wayward Son are as far as apart as writing can be, but think about Miracles Out of Nowhere. That center section where the fugue is going on is very classically influenced music. And there's very straight ahead commercial type songs, Play the Game, Fight Fire with Fire, songs that were, very radio friendly songs, because, a lot of stations aren't going to play 7 minutes of Song for America. Another song that's, extremely prog, but, going back to, All I Wanted, that was on MTV like every 10 minutes. I remember turning MTV on and it seemed like All I Wanted by Kansas was on their rotation constantly. Well, that's not a prog rock song. So how can you exclusively give that prog title to Kansas when they have such a diverse genre?
I think that's one of the things I love about the band is that they never pigeonholed themselves, or you guys never pigeonholed yourselves into a particular style.
Right.
You know, like it had a feeling, sure. Like there's a vocal phrasing and styling and harmonies that happened that were unique to the band, but the songwriting was, it couldn't be any more left and right at the same time, all the time, you know, from.
Right. I think that's one of the things that I love most about Kansas is, you know, when Carrie or Steve, they sat down to write a song, it was so different, and they really did whatever they could to that song. And I don't think they ever really had the mindset of, oh, well, the record company is not going to like this song because it's not Wayward Son or it's not Dust in the Wind.
Right.
You know, they really, you know, kept their own thinking. It's like, you know, Rush, you know, Rush always did their own thing.
They certainly did.
You know, they didn't let the influences of what was big at the time, you know, influence what they wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah, and it's my band's keyboardist and founder Sami, I think, was onto something when he said that the best bands are the ones that have absolute diamonds and then also absolute shit in their song catalog, because it shows that, you know, that you're not doing exactly that I'm gonna try and make the same hit song over and over again. No, you're just like fearlessly going and exploring every corner that there is to find about your music in a weird star-shaped house, you know.
Right.
And that's the way to do it, you know. So that's definitely Kansas, I think.
Yeah, and I unfortunately, I think a lot of bands fell into that trap because they did experience some success, and then the pressure from the record company was, we want another one like that because that was successful, that made money, you know, the almighty dollar, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's unfortunate that a lot of bands ended up chasing their own hit, you know, and in a lot of instances fell short. Whereas I know it myself, you know, I sit at the keyboard here, and it's strange how things come out of nowhere just from noodling around. Sometimes I sit down and, you know, it's a hard rocker, then it's, you know, then it's soft rocker, then it's, you know, I never let a preconceived, oh, I got to write a rock song. You know, I like sitting down at the piano or picking up a guitar and just totally coming up with something unique. And I think that's really what Kansas has always done.
The catalog certainly represents that theory.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
What is I know you guys have been touring and you're getting ready to go back out again. What is the Kansas crowd look like these days? It's got to be multi-generational, right? Like people like myself taking their kids to the shows, and maybe even grandkids at 50 years in the business, right?
Right. Well, you know, I'll tell you guys, when I first joined the band, the first 3 or 4 months that I was in the band, I really noticed the crowd being, shall we say, more senior. How can I put this lightly?
Yeah, like 1 foot in the grave, 1 in the concert.
Right. You know, can I dig myself in deeper? Can I have a bigger shovel, please? Thank you. I did notice that it was a older crowd, to put it nicely. And just in the time that I've been in the band, I've seen our audience, and it's not because we're getting older.
Nothing like that.
I've seen the audience get younger, and also more of a female audience too. Whereas when I first joined the band, it was an older crowd, and really what they type as the black t-shirt crowd. How ironically I'm wearing black t-shirt.
Right.
Jeez, good God. So, but just in the time that I've been in the band, I've seen the audience get younger. Then, of course, you know, it helps when, you know, Dust in the Wind is in movies like Old School. You know,
Yeah.
you got Will Ferrell just doing that diamond version of Dust in the Wind. You know, but you know, also Supernatural, unofficially adopting Wayward Son as their theme song, and you think about the, you know, the age group that TV show attracted was a very young crowd, probably that 14 to 22 year old crowd. And, you know, and it was really something and shocking to me when we did the Comic-Con, we did that surprise appearance. How they kept that secret was absolutely amazing to me, because I mean, there's just so many people working production on that thing. But to do that Comic-Con episode, or that Hall H it was in San Diego, in that convention center there, which was huge, to see so many young kids, and we come out and do Wayward Son, and they're all singing it, and not just the chorus, they're singing the verses with me.
Right.
And it's like, okay. And it's something from that point, it seemed like that really was a turning point where a younger crowd was coming to see us. And, you know, it's not only were parents bringing their kids, but bringing their grandkids.
Yeah.
Hey, would any of you happen to have an extra bottle of Geritol you could ship to me? See, she's too young. She's like, what's Geritol?
I
love that. You know, thank you. I'm fucking 40 years old. I know I look like 20.
40.
Yeah,
I
totally.
got t-shirts older than you. Jeez.
Nice. The problem is I'm
wait a
finished.
second. I gotta cry
So I don't
because
know what
that's
that
a
is.
fact.
But those are the best t-shirts. Never let them go. Those
Right.
are the,
Right.
like, you know,
Hey,
they-
you know, I think I do have some Kansas t-shirts. I know I have a couple of Journey t-shirts from back in the early 80s that, you know, they're more keepsakes than they are something.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, like, you know, that it's not so far from my birthday, so you can send me one if you want. But the thing,
I am, although it does say Bandit Lights. Can you see the back of my shirt?
oh, so
Oh,
cool.
nice.
Nice. But I want the vintage ones. But
Endless-
as I
endless
am
promoter.
finished, what was that thing? What is this product that everybody else thought was hilarious? Bottle of what?
Geritol? I don't even know what Geritol
She
is.
does not know what Geritol
I
is.
unfortunately
I do
I
not.
do, and
What is
maybe
it?
that speaks to my age, but it's like a
It was
steamier-
like the daily vitamin of the day back in, God, that probably came out in the 50s, right? The 50s and 60s. It's like the original multivitamin.
Geritol.
Drink it
Probably had a
down.
little bit of cocaine in it too, if it's from that era. Like, you know, just to keep things nice and perky, you know.
Oh, she had to bring that in.
I had to. It's my job on the show. You know?
Here's the
No,
Google
it was
definition.
all organic.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
It's a supplemental iron product for postmenopausal women and senior men.
Okay.
Oh, I was like, Ronnie,
According
I'm so
to the
sorry about
Googles.
your post-menopause, but
I didn't know I was postmenopausal.
I was just thinking, man, I might need
now
some
you
of that. So last week I didn't know we were going to be interviewing you, and I was driving in the car with my wife, and Wayward Son comes on, and the first thing I said to her, because that song goes all over the place arrangement wise, and I looked at my wife and said, this band did not give a fuck about what they were doing. They were just writing to write.
Right.
And it's funny because then Bruce messaged me, oh, should we do this interview? Oh, yeah, of course. But it happened like, you know, synchronistically, you know? And what's it like on stage? Like, because those songs are so
Iconic.
They're iconic, so people expect to hear them in a certain way.
Yeah.
But since Kansas is that kind of band where they're just like, for lack of a better term, they don't give do you jam on stage? Do you play with the songs on stage? How do you deal with that balancing act?
Yeah, you know, it's probably one thing I'm guilty of in my performance, because even though I've sung certain songs over and over and over again, I don't stick to the script. Of course, a song like Dust in the Wind, I'm not going to take too many freedoms with adjusting the melody, because you know, a song like Dust in the Wind that you've heard that studio version a zillion times, even if you're not a musician, you've got that melody ingrained in your mind. It's there. So I'm not going to take too much creative liberty with that. Wayward Son at the end of the night, and you know, talk about an older crowd. I mean, this is so true. It is so great to start Wayward Son and you see everyone in the audience that's in their 60s and 70s suddenly become 20 years old again. I mean, that is such a satisfying thing to me. But I like to embellish, and you know, I've always considered myself a shoot from the hip singer. When I'm feeling good, and let me tell you, the voice is a fickle thing. There's days when I've felt great, can't wait to get singing, and my voice just is not working with me. And there's times when I didn't feel good, and I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to get through the night? I get up to that microphone, and from note number one, it hits me, and I'm singing like a bird, you know? But when I'm feeling good, boy, I like to shoot from the hip. I like to embellish. And in that split second in my mind, anticipating the next line, I'm constantly pushing my limits. And I've done that my entire life. And I think that's, you know, what's expanded my range over years and years and years. I was already blessed with a high range, you know, back in, you know, the early 80s, meeting my bandmates from Chaser. They're like, hey man, you could sing high. Let's do some Yes music, you know? Well, yeah, John Anderson, he's in the stratosphere 90% of the time, you know? So I've been blessed with that. So it's a tough thing to stick to the script, which is something I very rarely do. But of course, you have to pay respect to the written melody. So I pick and choose my embellishing very carefully.
Because it's got to feel good too to have those band members that give you the freedom to do that.
Yeah, it's one of the great things for me being in Kansas, and Phil and Rich allowing me that freedom, because I don't think singers and other bands, not mentioning any names, Boston. I'm sorry. Did that come out? You know, Tommy DiCarlo, what a great singer, took Brad Delp's place. I don't think that Tom Scholz allows, you know, that kind of freedom with Tommy. And again, you're talking about, you know, songs that, you know, Boston songs that have been heard a million gazillion times. It's something I'm very thankful for, because I don't know if I'd be able to do it. I really don't know if I'd be able to be caged like that. Because like I said, you know, when I'm feeling good, I want to go for it. I want to push my limits. Sometimes I fall on my face, you know, but it's after, oh my God, after 40 something years of singing, it's something I rarely do.
Right. Hey, so I don't mean to interrupt, but I just got my warning. We've got like 6 minutes left. So I wanted to ask you real quick, what's up next for Kansas? What do you have planned here for the new year?
Touring, and more touring. Quick story, when we started the Left Overture 40th anniversary tour, Phil was talking to me and he's saying that he was talking to Keith, our agent, and that we were going to try and do that show in 12 to 15 markets. And that ended up being like 80 markets that we brought that show to. Well, and Point of No Return 40th anniversary long surpassed that. We broke the 100 show mark with that.
Oh.
With this being the 50th anniversary, once that show starts rolling, I really don't see an end in sight. Might be the the third annual 50th anniversary tour.
Right. But in the end, it's an amazing thing that you're still relevant after all these years, right? People still want to hear you. People still going to fill the stadiums, and that's what it's all about.
Right. And that's another thing that's very flattering. I always have a friend of mine, Mike, always calls me, and he's always checking the sales and hey man, you're sold out again. Hey man, you're sold out again. Hey man, you're sold out again. I'm like, wow, that's fantastic. So we must be doing something right.
Excellent.
Well, obviously. Yeah.
Rena, you got anything else before we go?
Just for everyone, please visit us on kansasband.com, and there's news in there and just everything from news and merch and all the happenings in Kansas. So please visit kansasband.com. And
cool. I love that it's that and not
plug.
Like, look at our
50th anniversary
Insta
CD.
One second. Can you do that again with the CD?
Can you see that?
Oh boy, that looks fancy.
Okay.
Super fancy.
You get 3 CDs. If you buy 2 box sets, you know what you have? A full set of drink coasters. No, I'm kidding.
But that's like a definitive collection of
right.
Of
I mean,
Kansas.
This is what we call circular economy.
Right. Yes. Yes. So, but I mean, it's really, this is really cool too. And like, the booklet that comes along with this is just really great. And one of these days I'm going to read it because there's some interesting stuff in there.
But I'm sure
I gotta say though,
go ahead.
The coolest ever CD was a Spinal Tap CD where you could, there were like cardboard foldouts of the guys at Stonehenge, and I had that shit on top of my CD
guitar.
for
Don't
like
even
3
look
years.
at it.
But
that
I mean,
was really cool too.
yes,
There was
and I imagine
posters in the Spinal Tap CD.
Yes, and I imagine that that project there, that 50th anniversary, it's not only good for older fans, but definitely to introduce younger people to Kansas music as well.
Yeah, there's hope for the younger society of today, especially if they buy this, because again, it's music that you're not hearing today,
right?
But again, it's just warms my heart to see young kids in the audience and being attracted to this type of music. It really is a school of music theory is what Kansas is. So for kids to get a liking to this type of music is really great.
Hey, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Have a
oh
great
my God,
holiday.
guys, this was so much fun.
Thank you.
Excellent.
So lovely meeting you, and thank you so much for the chat.
Same here. Please come
Thank
see
you for
us
the
when
music.
we're in your
Yes.
area. Have a great day. Have a great holiday.
And keep have fun on